Hey everybody, welcome. We're going to get started in just a moment as more people join us. This is the How to ACE ChatGPT seminar for the collaborative game community. This is the same session that we did in Philadelphia for the executive members of the councils. And today's session is for those who missed it, for their teams and members of the associate council as well. So I'm glad to see all of you here. I see we have a nice group of attendees. We're going to operate this as a webinar, so you will see me and Cosmo. We won't see you. We will be doing a great exercise at the end of Cosmo's talk. Stay for that. It is the creme of the creme, if you will. It's a great, it'll really bring all of this together. And we'll put a link in chat when it's time for you to download the exercise instructions that we'll all do together. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And we are recording this for members who want to watch it later. So we have the pleasure of spending time today with Cosmo. Cosmo Ron is the CEO of SmugMug, a successful mid-sized software company in Silicon Valley that's focused on the high-end photography space. Cosmo's also on some boards. He's a filmmaker. He's a member of SAG-AFTRA. He's an actor. He has a background at companies like Google and EA, Coursera, and the Navy, which was, he said, his first startup.
Yeah.
Cosmo's put a lot of time into thinking about how to use ChatGPT as a thought partner and assistant and as a leverage to increase productivity. He claims that it has increased his productivity by 50%. I was initially skeptical of that claim until we worked through it, ran this presentation you'll see today through several dry runs, and I got to know Cosmo better, and I can see how he's actually been able to do that. And I hope that through this session today, you will start to see some productivity improvements for yourselves. So without further ado, Cosmo, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to go off camera until we get to the exercise. You're in charge, Captain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Let me go ahead and share that. You should all see a lovely How to ACE ChatGPT screen. If I can get Phil or somebody to say yes, that'd be awesome. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into this because there is a ton to get through, and I really want to give you the opportunity to spend that time in the exercise. So let's get through that and show you how I have used ChatGPT to really increase my productivity by, we'll say 50%, just so everybody will believe me. All right, so what are you going to get out of this workshop? First of all, I want you to get inspired to improve your personal productivity. I'm hopeful that you'll generate ideas to improve your teams, your teams, and then their teams' productivity as well. And we're going to give you 3 case studies examples for reference. So I'll take you through a high-level overview of those case studies, and then we'll dive, and then you'll get a chance to actually see the material from them. So the entire chat threads with that. And then you're also going to get a chance to practice using ChatGPT yourself. Now, before we dive too much into this, I really want to make sure that we're framing this properly. What we're talking about here is humans with AI rather than AI without humans. This is our opportunity to really understand that this is an extension of our own skills. AI is not going to replace humans, that's my perspective, but humans with AI are likely to start outpacing people who aren't able to use AI in almost every industry. And that's going to take place over the course of some time. So it's not going to happen soon, but it is happening, and it's a really excellent opportunity for you and your teams to get out ahead of that. So that's what this is about, is getting you and your teams out ahead of it. So I first started using ChatGPT as a thought partner, much like I might with a human thought partner. I learned how to essentially ACE be an ace at using ChatGPT. And I sort of created this framework as I was working with Phil on this presentation. We created this framework so that we could really help articulate what it is that that you can do. It's a framework to hold in your head as you're trying to use tools like this. So first, we want to ask. We want to ask clearly articulated questions. The goal is to set a direction of the conversation, include your desired outcome, and I personally use a very human or conversational tone. You know, your mileage may vary there, but the for me, I find that it helps set the conversation tone for myself so that I feel like this is a person that I'm talking to rather than a machine that is going to give me the right answer, because it might not. And then I also want to provide enough context, provide all the background information that you need, provide the models that you want it to use, or the frameworks that you want to help it, that you want to have it use to help understand what it is you're trying to accomplish and how you would like to go about accomplishing it. Remember, you're using a structured model, and it takes other structures and handles those really well. So the more structure and context you can provide, the better. And then finally, the E is engage. Again, this goes back to that treating it like a conversation with a very capable peer, somebody who can go out to the internet, find all the things, synthesize information quickly, and then give you some results. You want to engage with it though, because it might not give you exactly what you're looking for. You're going to want to provide it specific feedback, just like you might with an employee or a peer who you're trying to work with on a team project, for example. So let's take a look at these case studies. Let's just dive straight into them. Now, this is where Phil had asked me, like I said, and he said, how much productivity gain did I get? And I'm going to argue it's close to 50%. And that while that might sound unbelievable, I think these examples are going to show you what I mean by that and highlight what this has allowed me to do that I might not otherwise be able to do. And I hope that you can find that kind of inspiration for yourselves. So the first case study we're going to cover is around team communication. We're going to start with how to use ChatGPT to communicate with people who have different communication styles than you, and to even just learn what that would look like. Then we're going to dive into creating some training, so manager training. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. And I have a quick update to that case study because I'm working on it a little bit more this quarter. And so I can talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, case study 3 is a complete strategic overview and 3 different strategic scenario plannings that I helped a friend with in a interview that they were doing. So let's dive straight into the first one of these, team communications. The challenge that I had was that I had a group of new department heads, and they were all relatively new to the role that they were in. We'd made some changes to the organizational structures of the folks reporting up into me, and we were struggling to communicate back and forth, and they weren't acting like a team. And so what I wanted to do was figure out a way to overcome that challenge. And my general sentiment is to lean on something like a workshop or some sort of team building exercise. So I brought in Shannon Keeley to lead a workshop for some of the team with the intent of learning how to better communicate with each other. And we all took a DISC profile. I'll talk a little bit about what that is in a second for those of you who aren't familiar with it. But we did a DISC profile assessment, which helped us identify themes that resonated with our preferred communication approaches, right? It wasn't this is who you are. It was hey, use that to help communicate to other people how you would prefer to be communicated to. And then based on that, we did some hands-on work with writing messages as we would want them communicated to us. And then we asked ChatGPT to translate those to somebody else's profile. So let's take a look at what that looks like. But before we do, what were some of the results? Well, hours of saved time, which I'll talk about how we got to, and the team is operating extremely smoothly right now. They're communicating better. The actual team, or like the team itself, is resonating as a team. They're challenging each other. They're able to have communication and conversation with each other, and they've learned enough of those communication preferences now. They don't usually even have to go to ChatGPT, but that helped get us there. It was an accelerant. So. Quick overview of DISC. It's a behavioral profile assessment. And again, we used it to help the team self-identify communication preferences. This is the result. These are the real results of where my staff and I are. You can see there's a cluster of folks up on the left, and then one person way over on the right, and that was creating some communication challenges. And the DISC stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. And you basically have a profile that puts you anywhere on that circle in the middle, all the way to the edges, and it can tell you give you some insights about who you might be in terms of how you show up in the world. CR, that's me. I'm right smack in the middle of the D, as far up away from the middle as you can get, which means I'm very solidly in that space. And then CF over there is an S with a little bit of influence leaning. So she's a steadiness with a little bit of influence leaning. So we'll talk a little bit about how we got here. So again, remember, ACE, ask clearly articulated questions or requests to set direction of the conversation, provide context including background info, models, and frameworks, and engage as if discussing with a capable peer. All right, the first example, a message between me and LR. We're fairly similar in style, which is a good starting point because I felt like if ChatGPT created a message that looked like what I would write, but maybe tweaked slightly, we were sort of in the right ballpark there. So I started with some pleasantries in my ask. I almost always do. Again, I just think that it helps set the tone for myself. And then I tell it what I'm planning to do. I want writing a message to a colleague with a different communication style and the information it needs to help. So I tell it the context. I'm a DISC style D. This person's a DISC style DI, and also told me some communication preferences. So I gave ChatGPT a few other bullet points that she had told me. The results were, and then I specifically told it, here's the message I want you to translate for me, right? So please rewrite this Slack message to make sure it's receptive to this other person. And it's a fairly straightforward, hey, I've been thinking about the approach I'm seeing from your team, and I want to get an update on the overall plan. Okay, great. ChatGPT responded, certainly, and it's, to communicate effectively with your colleagues. So it gives me a little bit of actual insight into how I might approach communicating before it even then tells me what the actual message was. The message ends up not being quite that different. Here's the two, my original Slack at the top, and then the recommended essentially minor changes. And this resonated really well with that person. So I thought, okay, great. Let's try a way more challenging one. This time I want to have a communication between me and CF, whose communication style is very different than mine. And again, let's remember, in order to ACE ChatGPT, we ask clearly articulated questions or requests to set the direction of the conversation, provide context, including background info, models, and frameworks, and engage as if discussing with a capable peer. So they ask, good evening, again, starting with pleasantries. I need to send an email to the senior director of marketing, et cetera, et cetera. The context is, again, her SI style is the sort of communication preferences, and I also listed a few bullets. It's worth noting here that ChatGPT already knew what all those preferences were. It had sort of loaded all that already. So I asked it ahead of time, hey, can you tell me what you know about DISC? And I knew that it already knew what those kinds of preferences would look like. So I didn't have to tell it much else after that. This time I asked for help with a direct question about marketing efforts and the KPIs this person is tracking so that I know how the marketing portfolio is balanced. And then we can communicate to make adjustments as needed. But this person, because they have such a different communication style than mine, if I sent this message, I need to see a better picture of the impact of the marketing efforts. What are our key drivers for acquisition? If I sent this, the person I was messaging this to would think I was upset or mad, or she would start getting anxious. And that's not what I wanted. For me, this is just, hey, I want to know how things are going on the marketing portfolio so we can have some conversations about where we're balancing things and have a conversation about it. But that's not how she would read this. Now, I did not actually get a final product because what it gave me was much too wordy, but I got a draft that I could work with. So it starts very much more encouraging and reflecting our team's remarkable efforts. And as we continue to build on our success, it gives me a sense of what it is that person's communication style could look like. and continues on, again, much too long. Um, but this tells me how I can actually frame my own point of view into her point of view. And this is what I actually ended up writing. 3 quick paragraphs, starts off with that sort of starting with a supportive, collaborative, and positive style, and then jumps straight to the request that I had. This message landed much better and really worked for her. So results, what normally would take me a day to fret over something in between meetings and get around to finally doing the conversation and sending the Slack message and worrying about whether or not I was going to have to spend a month fixing a broken relationship because I sent something that was too blunt, turns into something that I can do in 20 minutes. And now I don't even have to use ChatGPT to do that anymore because I've learned that communication style just by using this. Again, it improved our team communications. The team is operating extremely effectively. And then again, this took 20 minutes worth of my time instead of a month fixing the actual frustration that we would have had if I had sent that first message. Next, let's take a look at manager training. We needed a foundational training program for my middle managers. The challenge was that almost all the manager level folks in the team are brand new to managing, so they don't have a lot of experience here already, and I really needed them to get them trained up on some manager fundamentals. There wasn't anybody else at the company that can do this particular training that I wanted to have done, and so I needed to either hire an external consultant or do it myself. And since I had such a specific and strong point of view on this, I wanted to do it myself. However, when was I going to find time for that? So I thought, okay, let's use ChatGPT to create a structured training program with a modern educational approach. I fortunately have a background in L&D, and the specific content I wanted to cover is well known. So it's not like I had to make a whole bunch of stuff up. So this was beneficial for 2 reasons. 1, framework provided, and 2, I had a sense of how to approach doing this. So the results, I went from 0 to a draft, and I'll talk a little bit more about where I'm at now with that. 0 to a draft at all, which took days instead of months, or just never getting done because I just never was going to find time to sit down and actually create an entire 8 to 12 week training program for the managers. Again, let's remember ACE. We want to ask clearly articulated questions or requests to set direction of the conversation. We want to provide context, including background info, models, and frameworks, which is great for this one because it has a lot of different frameworks and models already established. And we want to engage as if discussing with a capable peer. So for the context here, I started with letting it know who I am and what it was I'm trying to do. You don't always have to go in order. Sometimes I might start with the context and then do the ask in the same chat. This was making sure that it knew what manager tools was and the manager tools approach to sort of the four big areas. And that's why I started here. And ChatGPT knew that process quite well. So I knew I could continue on. So in the ask, I set up in this chat, we're going to put together a training program for the managers, right? So just telling it what we're going to do so that ahead of time it knows what that's going to be. A little bit more back and forth, which you'll all get to see in the final documents of the full conversation. But after a little bit of back and forth, this is how it responded. And I'm just going to highlight these as we go. It gave me a program overview and a program structure broken into 4 modules with weeks 1 and 2. So we're on the right track, right? So we're on the right track here. But there was some stuff that I needed to change. It was overly relying on Bloom's taxonomy and a couple other things that I didn't like. So we're on the right track. So then I'm engaging with it, right? So let's go back and say, great, this is helpful. I think what I'd like to do is, and then I sort of give it some feedback on how directionally I want to go, which is something that, if you're working with somebody else doing something like this, it could take, days because you might send it over, they got to look at it and see what they think, and then you have to back and forth, etc. This just takes a couple of moments and it spits out a whole new version. So this is where the magic happened. It came back and replied with a program structure, includes week 1 being a lecture and discussion with homework to then go apply the material, and week 2 being a hands-on workshop, which it also completely articulated for me, right? So it gave objectives for each of the workshop sections, how to do the workshop, what kind of role playing we might want to do. But that's not all. It also created a syllabus and the context and the content of each of the 4 lectures, which was absolutely fantastic. And since then, last week, I used this to create the actual script for each one of these lectures and the slide outlines for each one of these lectures. So now I have all the material I need to record and be done with this and start actually launching the training. So again, the results here. First of all, I probably just would have never gotten it done. The backlog to done problem for me is a constant challenge, given that I'm often traveling or doing things like this and helping other folks, and I have my own whole day job and all that. So spending time getting a chance to do this, which I happen to love and I'm passionate about, or I really could have asked somebody else to do it. But I happen to be passionate about it and have a point of view. So this just took it from backlog to done. And if I had been sitting down to focus on doing all of that, a syllabus and all the rest of those things and the scripts and all the rest of that, it would have taken a month at least. And instead it took about a day to get most of that done, and then another day to have scripts and outlines done for all of the actual lectures. All right.
I just want to jump in and say, first of all, amazing.
Let's do it.
We talked about this. But for those of you watching, I want you to know that, Cosmo, you're okay again with sharing the document with all the full set of prompts?
Yes.
And the full set of replies. What you're seeing here are highlights, because it would
Yep.
just be overwhelming to get into the details, but we'll be sharing the document.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's going to get a copy of the entire full scripts that both what I said and what ChatGPT replied, the full scripts for all 3 of these examples with some light edits just to protect the innocent and et cetera. But all of that is in here. You'll all get an example of that, which is why I'm going high level just to give you a view of what you can get out of this. But to Phil's point, it would be very overwhelming to try and show you all of it. It's text.
Yeah, and remember, after this third example, we're going to give you a live exercise to do right now, which is going to help have you work with ChatGPT to do something many people tell us they need help with, which is coming up with a content strategy and a series of drafts of posts that they can put on LinkedIn or other social media that helps build their personal brand and expertise in the marketplace.
Exactly. And it's actual real life example, because I already have started to see some folks that were in the last workshop posting their content. So it's been really awesome to see actual folks going live with what they were starting to create. So really fantastic. All right. This one is this is my favorite example, specifically because it's something I'm super passionate about, but I know takes a long time and it's a ton of work, and I had 4 days. So this challenge, I had a friend of mine was asked to do a strategy for a business that they were talking to, and come up with 3 different approaches, so 3 different scenarios, and at least a implementation strategy for that. So I happen to love doing this. This is one of my favorite sort of activities, but I also knew that I didn't have a whole quarter and an entire team to do it, which is what I would normally have. And I found out on a Thursday, and he needed to have it done by, I think it was the next Tuesday. So, and I was at a conference. So I came home from the conference and had caught COVID. So I'm sick as heck, and also have to try and do this really big project to help my buddy out. So I wanted to do it. I was excited about it, but I knew I couldn't do this by myself. So I used ChatGPT to create comparative multi-year strategies. And are they, the most thorough? No. Are they completely 100% exactly what I would do? Probably not. But from 0 to what we have, absolutely, in 4 days was totally worth it, because from there you're now just adding nuance and you're bringing your own humanness to it, and providing more context. So the results, first of all, this was at all possible. But also, again, usually this is something that takes me about a quarter with a small team to do all the thorough analysis and come up with strategies and then vet those out. Instead, it took me 4 days. So remember, ask clearly articulated questions or requests to set direction of the conversation, provide context, including background info, models, and frameworks, and engage as if discussing with a capable peer. So my ask: I asked it to do a strategic analysis of the company so that I could see at a high level sort of the breakdown of the industry, right? And I asked it to do that across a set of areas. So I wanted an external analysis, including industry definitions, six forces analysis, things like that. I wanted competitive analysis so that I could see who are the competitors in the space and sort of roughly get some ideas of how it creates and captures value and what kind of resources and capabilities. Again, this is literal text, so I asked, our best guess in some places because I knew it couldn't possibly know that. It's a private company that those data aren't publicly available. But given the nature of the business and what it saw, it could try and make up some info. And if I really wanted to, I could have given it more information here, but that wasn't material. Those are the two areas we're going to focus on. So it responds with what I think is fairly obvious information about it, but that actually tells me it's in the right lane. It's going in the right direction, right? The industry definition is that this company operates in a digital marketing lead gen space, and the industry is fast-paced with continuous tech advancements. And we knew some of that was things that they were thinking about anyway. So again, sort of, okay, that's pretty straightforward, but you're talking about a tech company and that makes sense, but good, because that means I can start to trust where it's going to head. And then it provided me with a complete six forces analysis, including scoring. And I, looked through all these, they all checked out. It provided me with a macro environmental analysis, even including political and legal. But there was more. I wanted to now take the strategic analysis and turn that into an actual V minus C focused sort of value minus or value or cost minus strategic approach. So what did we do? I engaged with it. So I offered it a little bit more material, so more frameworks, this V minus C kind of framework and some other kinds of frameworks. And I asked it to help generate two to three strategic scenarios. I provided it with an overview of exactly how I wanted it to look. So I wanted to see scenario description, value or cost, what kind of strategy type would it be, what are the value drivers, those kinds of. So this is what I wanted it to. This is the framework I gave it to develop scenarios based around. So that's the framework I wanted to see. And it replied with a list of text scenarios. So it came back with a giant long text list, and I asked that to translate that into a table for me, which it provided. Three completely different, and all three of these are just as valid strategic alternative scenarios. But that's not all. We also wanted to see how we could implement that first strategy over, say, a 2 to 4 year time horizon. So I gave it a little bit more context and asked for a 3 horizon style breakdown of an implementation approach. Again, it gave me a list, and I asked it to translate that to a table, which it did. It fully broke down across what we should do in the first year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 4 years, and gave an overview of what would happen in each one of those sections, what the objective would be for each one of the time horizons, so that you would know, have I accomplished this objective? Have I accomplished the next objective? What kinds of actions to take? What the value proposition during that time would be, and any additional considerations that I should take a look at and make sure I'm keeping in mind. With some edits to context, I was able to essentially hand this over to my friend, and he did a great job doing the presentation. So the results on this one, again, something that took normally a quarter, so 3 months, took me 4 days. That took 4 days to get to all of that. And I had COVID during that. So I was not in my right mind at all. I was absolutely sick. It was like a really bad COVID, because I know some folks catch it and it's not so bad, but it was a rough one. But we managed to get that all done. And I'm really proud of that work. I really love how that ended up turning out. And that just really opened the door to what else can I possibly do with ChatGPT as a tool. That's where we get to your turn. Because that's when I thought, what if I use it to start making some of my giant backlog of things I've been wanting to write about, which I'm about to start launching and publishing my own work as well, because I've finally gotten a chance to get around to that. So let's turn it over to you for a little while. Phil, you want to tell everybody how we're going to do this?
All right, so we have an exercise for you. We're going to put a link in chat. And what we want you to do is download the document that we just threw into chat. You might have to copy that URL and put it in a browser, depends on how your Zoom settings are set up. You might be able to click on it, or you might have to copy it. Once you have it open, just do me a favor and throw in chat, open and ready to go, so I get a sense of where people are at. Then I'll talk you through it briefly and get you started. Okay. All right, I'm starting to see that come through for people. All right, I'll give you a moment more. So this is a 15, asking you for a login to collaborative game. Are other people getting a request to log in? Looks like that's, so, Charlie, make sure.
Yeah, let me pull the one from Dropbox.
Okay, because you could also just go into your Drive and make sure the settings are set to everyone. Yep, okay, hang on everyone. Second link. Johnny shared works.
Yeah, here's the Dropbox link.
Okay. Oh, Johnny put that in there too.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay. Yep. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. Again, put in the chat when you're ready to go. I want to just see a few more of those before I walk through the instructions. Okay. Now I'm starting to see a good number of people. I'm going to wait another 30 seconds. Why aren't I looking at this thing? Did I not? Okay, there it is. All right, so I'm going to get started now with instructions. If anyone is having trouble, you can post. But this is fairly self-explanatory. This is a 15-minute exercise. So we're going to start now and we're going to end at 1:51 Eastern. So I want to have a chance for you all to reflect back and to hear from some of you in chat. So we're starting now. Fill this out, grab a piece of paper or print it out, whatever you want to do. Step one is to think of 3 topics for which you have expertise and give yourself 3 minutes for this. All right, and I'll let you know when your 3 minutes is up. So what are 3 topics for which you have expertise? If you finish that before the 3 minutes, you can flip the page over and go through the next set of things. And you will want to bring up ChatGPT. I think all of you know the URL for ChatGPT. You can also Google it. You can use a free account if you don't have a paid account with them. You could also, if you prefer, use Gemini or some other large language model, Anthropic or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you've got the 3 minutes going. Good, Cosmo. Thank you for doing that. So for your own purposes, write down the 3 topics that you have. And again, if that comes to you right away, you can turn over this document and start going through these prompts that we ask you to go through. The goal here is to end up with a draft of a content strategy and a draft of your first blog post. Okay. So you've got 2 minutes left on coming up with the 3 topics. Some of you have finished that, I assume. and moved on to step 2. If you're on to step 2, just throw step 2 into the chat just so I have a sense of where people are at. Yeah, you can just put the number 2 if you want, yeah. Okay. Great. Is anyone having trouble coming up with 3 topics? If you are,
Yeah,
really,
good question.
just put trouble. Trouble ahead, trouble behind. You got 10 topics, Skylar. Great.
Perfect.
10 is good. Pick 3.
Yeah. I've now done this exercise 3 times for myself, just to continue coming up with ideas as I have thoughts about, oh, here's 3 topics and here's sort of an interesting thing happening in the, out in the market, or people are talking about right now. And I think I have something to say about that. It's almost always like fun as a reminder of the stuff that I know. Like, I've spent a career doing things, 2 master's degrees, like spend a bunch of time thinking about stuff, but then you get into the weeds day to day and you sort of forget that you have a lot of really interesting thoughts and ideas yourself, and maybe it's time to go share those. All right, we're coming to the end of the 3 minutes for those of you who hadn't already switched to the second one.
All right, so most of you are now in step 2. Um, it's fairly self-explanatory, and we have run this a couple of times and seems to have worked. But let me know if you have a question. Throw it in chat, or if you're running into any trouble.
Remember, ask clearly articulated questions, provide the context, and engage with it.
So Kelly has a question.
Ah,
Want to go?
if I can find chat. Yes. So for the prompts, it's taking you through, write the first thing, see what it comes up with, and then you're going to start engaging with it on your own. Use the rest of the prompts as a guideline for how I approached it. But please do also feel free to take that and start, as it gives you responses, engage with it. Figure out, take it as though it's a conversation with a real person. And so the conversation I had worked really well for me with those prompts, which is why they're there for you. If you want to try a different approach, that's also totally fine. But yeah, basically 1 prompt, see what it says, fine tune the results. So the first step is really asking it to tell you what it knows about those 3 topics so that you can double check that it's on the same page as you, which is why we asked you to do things that you're familiar with, because you want to again, human with AI. So I've done it once and had it come back with some weird things. The new chat GPT 4 doesn't, and 4.0 now doesn't hallucinate as much on some of these basic topics that are well known and well researched that I tend to think about. But please do use those as a
Great.
guideline.
Okay, good.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, we were sort of already in this.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're at about 9 to 10 minutes left. If you have other questions, throw it in chat. Otherwise, we'll be silent so you can focus. right, we're gonna end in about 5 minutes. I hear you, Kelly. Cosmo, thoughts on what Rachel just posted?
Yeah, I'm reading it now. It's a good question. I am.
Hey, Cosmo, I'm thinking if we answer that, everyone's gonna hear it and they're working, so I'm trying to
Oh yeah, yeah.
maybe
Here, I'll type it.
type it out, yeah. All right, about 2 more minutes. If you are done with the exercise, just throw done in chat. Okay. Yes, Whitney, you can go home now, given what you've accomplished in these 15 minutes. All right, I'm seeing a fair number of dones. And Rachel, check Charlie Riggio's response in terms of giving ChatGPT feedback to engage if it's getting overly eager. You can sort of slow it down. All right, so Charlie, and I don't think we can actually bring anyone in live to hear their voice. Is that right? Can we do that?
I think we can. Yeah, I think we can promote to panelists. So if there are folks over, if you want to just let me know who, I can bring them on in. We're
Okay,
open to it.
Any one of you like to come in and just say a few words about this experience? I don't know, like Ted Hong. I'm looking here. Um, or Whitney. Throw in chat if we could promote you to join the panel and just say a few words about your experience. Whitney? Okay. Charlie, can you bring in Whitney?
Yep, I promoted Ted and Whitney. You both should be getting prompts, so I think you just have
Okay,
to
there's Ted.
accept them.
Okay, Ted, yeah, unmute and tell us what this was like for you.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I put in so my three topics I said where I would be potentially an expert would be one, engagement in healthcare. Engagement. So I'm in healthcare, but engagement is really the healthcare term for marketing because it seems untoward to call it marketing.
Yeah.
And then two was I said self-improvement through biohacking, which would just be like, oh, I listen to, you know,
Yeah.
Huberman podcasts and sleep podcasts and, hey, what are the things that you can just enhance performance? And three, I said recommending curated content to an adult male in their 50s, right? Like sometimes when you post like, hey, I'm looking for a series to watch. And I'm like, okay, I watch a bunch of stuff. I recommend stuff to Phil. So maybe that'd be something that I could do. And then it tried to string it together with this through line, which I thought was pretty good. Let me see what it said about the first pass was the title was empower. Oh, and then I said break it down between professional and personal development because the first thing it said it talked a lot about kind of personal growth and self-improvement. And I said, okay, great. Can you revise and break it into professional versus personal? So the first part was professional and the second part was personal. And then I said, do one revision with a more humorous tone. And that was actually pretty interesting. It kind of made me the superhero of my own saga. I thought that was actually pretty clever
Yeah.
to kind of wrap it because the first version it was very straight, it was good, it was fine,
Sure.
but it wasn't like something I would personally post in
Yeah.
that tone. So I said try to make it more. It doesn't know me, right? It doesn't know my humor. But I thought it was a pretty good. So I was like, oh, hey, that's something I could work with. I would probably, then personally do a couple revisions on it, but certainly pretty good. And it was maybe I don't know couple hundred words, not really long. I mean, I could ask it to probably be like 500 words or something, but I thought it was certainly a very good thought starter. And there's 4 paragraphs, about the length of a post. I'd go maybe a little bit longer than that, but pretty good.
Great. Now, Ted, the newest sort of release of ChatGPT is known as 4.0.
Right.
And it's for the paid subscribers, and it does now have improved. They're constantly improving its between session memory, so it will start to remember, previous sessions and have
Sure.
shortcuts and to developing a consistent tone over time as you're asking it to draft out things in your
Yeah, and as I understand it, the O stands for like omni, right? So you could have
Um,
different media in it, and it might have been interesting to ask it to create an image to place at the top of the blog
yeah.
post.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Like a representative image. That probably would have been kind of interesting too.
I will tell you that I still find the text part of ChatGPT to be the best. The image stuff is challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
I've gotten in some fights. Like, no, I want this to look like X, and it doesn't, and it looks like Y. I'm like, not Y, X, and round and round we go. But yes, you could have asked that.
Yeah, and I've played with it a little bit in Copilot because on the free version of Copilot they could do some imagery as well. That's not great either.
Yeah. Audrey wrote, and I agree with you, a personal style guide template that you can create, by the way, with the help of ChatGPT. So you can lay it out as a starting point in terms of the tone and format that you like as defaults. Absolutely, love that. Whitney, unmute yourself and tell us about your experience.
Yeah, what I liked particularly about like this experience was I don't really love to write for public consumption, and I have to do so in my job frequently, and And I think it holds us back in developing core competencies in our product space a lot of the times for, especially like my portfolio. So this was a good example of something that helped keeping me thinking about things differently. Some of the stuff that ChatGPT gave me was like, not earth shattering, but it sparked different thoughts for me to like engage with it and evolve the conversation much faster than I could in a small team, or, you know, trying to remotely collaborate with a lot of individuals in disparate time zones and things like that. And the output wasn't, it wasn't like spot on with where I was thinking, but it took me in a direction that was better than where my thought pattern was taking me in the original like context I gave it. And the outcome was something that I could totally tweak in a few minutes and have something compelling.
Right on. That's great, Whitney. Thank you for sharing that. We're gonna conclude. Cosmo has some closing thoughts. So why don't you take us through that? I know
Sure thing.
there's at least one question in chat from Annette. So Annette will try to address that at the very end. If there are any other questions, throw it in chat. But go ahead, Cosmo.
Great. Okay, so this is just a quick couple of closing sentiments here. So I want everybody, hopefully everybody's noticed that this is important because I repeated it a zillion times. Remember how to be an ACE at ChatGPT. Ask clearly articulated questions or requests to set direction of the conversation, including desired outcome in a human conversational tone. Provide context, including background info, models, and frameworks to create understanding, and engage as if discussing with a capable peer. We heard that in a couple of the folks talking here too, is it's going to give you some kind of result. And if you think, well, that's not the answer I was looking for, so therefore this isn't great, that's sort of a dead end, right? Like, well, I guess that's it. If you find ways for how do you, because again, this is your approach and how you're going to do it. For me, it is, I engage with it as a person. I just put in my head, I assume it's another human being that I'm talking to, and I know that it's not sentient. There's much more thoughts on that, but but that's what it is. So next, second part of this is what you're in right now, but the next, we're going to share the doc with everybody. So you'll get a doc that provides the details of all three of those case studies, including the prompts, the results of the prompts, and some of the deliverables that were obtained. So you'll get a chance to see all that. And in closing, a reminder, I do not think that AI is going to replace humans. I think that humans with AI are very likely to replace humans without AI in nearly every industry. Again, it's exactly what we just heard here. It's because it's so much faster, you can accelerate your brain. Think of it as an extension of yourself and not as something that's coming for your job. Because then that means you're getting to do the parts of this that are the human things that need to get done, like coming up with the idea to even have the request to make a content because you want to communicate something in the world. AI can't do that, and it's not gonna, right? So be thinking about that over the next couple of times.
All right, so
Thank you, everybody.
questions, throw stuff in chat. We have a couple of minutes. Annette's asking, can I point it to video of me instead of providing text to reference? And I haven't found that work. If you've seen that.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think so. Not yet. That would be great.
That would be great. I even ask it to, if it'll summarize videos on YouTube, and it won't do it for me. Again, that may change, or it may be copyright issues or something, or maybe Gemini will do that since it's a Google product. Can it prepare PowerPoint slides with graphics?
No, or at least not that I've discovered it. There might be an add-on. There's a lot of add-ons on ChatGPT that does it. I like creating slides, so I don't do it. But what I have had it do, what I do, and I just mentioned earlier, is have it create the outline for the slides. Like, hey, this is the presentation, or here's the major points I want to talk about, and give it your favorite presentation format, and it will all the slides generated for you. Then you just got to build the slide deck based on what it said. So it can at least accelerate that for you.
All right, so listen, this has been a presentation of the Collaborative Game Councils. Cosmo is a member of our CEO Council. Our members do this all the time behind closed doors, really help each other figure out how to make better decisions faster, and to do so not alone, but with the support of peers. And so let's give Cosmo a round of applause.
Thank you.
For putting this together. And I know there was one more question there. Cosmo will be happy to take a look at this and respond over email.
Yeah.
And again, you're going to get an email from us with a document that Cosmo's prepared with all the details here, and with the exercise that you just saw us do. And if we hear from council members that they want us to do this again over Zoom for more people or their teams, we will happily, consider that. All right. Cosmo?
Thank you all very much for your engagement today, and I hope that you all go out and ace ChatGPT.
So Cosmo, stay on the line for a minute. We're going to end the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Great to have you here. And we will now, how do we do
Thank you,
this?
everybody.